Recorded. Okay, guys, I am here today with Julian Lerner. We are about to get into his show that I saw last night, Oliver, where Julian plays the Artful Dodger in New York City Center's production. You might also know him because he plays Brad Hitman in the reboot of The Wonder Years. He has been in so many TV and film projects and video games. What are you, the voice in video games? You'll have to explain that in a minute, how Dragon Quest works.
Yeah, I mean, for video games, I mean, I feel like, goodness, if I can really remember that, I think I did some kind of fun voiceover stuff for that.
Okay. So we won't deep dive into Dragon Quest, but he's been in Yes Day and Lucas and Alma's Way and Pottersville. He did a film that shot on Martha's Vineyard, where I go every summer. So I want to talk about that. He did the national tour of Les Mis, and he's worked with people like Jennifer Garner and Michael Shannon and Raúl Esparza and Christina Hendricks and Brian Cox and Lilli Cooper and so many more. But last night, Julian, I was at your first performance in front of an audience of Oliver. Go for Julian. What can you tell me?
Oh my gosh, I think last night was, I think from the cast perspective, it went great. Everybody did, amazing. The night before opening, we had this invited dress. So I think we really had it in our bones, and we were really, really comfortable with it, even though we've really only had 3 weeks of rehearsal and 1 day of tech. So it was a very, very quick process, but we got it out there. We shot it out of the cannon. It went, I think, better than I think we all expected. I think there are some things that were going to go wrong or something like that, but I think we all just, we all feel so close together. It's like a family, which shows. I think it's perfect.
So. Okay, so talk to me about the kid who plays Oliver. Can you tell us his name and your relationship with him in the show, and sort of what makes this so special for you working with him?
Oh my gosh, Benjamin Pajak he's amazing. He feels like a brother to me. Like he really shines up on that stage. He's just his presence, even as such, like a smaller, younger kid. He's the way he expresses his feelings in every single song that he sings, especially Where's Love. Like, that was beautiful. Every single time he sings it, I'm like, wow. I stand off stage. I think I'm stage right because I have to run in for Dodger, but I watch him and like the wings. I'm like, this is just amazing. Like, what a presence from such a smaller person up on that huge stage.
So how old is he? How old are you?
So I think Benjamin is 12. Yeah, Benjamin's 12 and I'm 15. So yeah.
You guys, so you play the Artful Dodger. You guys are so great together. Lilli Cooper is one of my closest, most beloved people in the theater community, and her Nancy is just astonishing. Everyone's amazing. What I didn't remember, I remembered the songs. I sat there going, oh my God, I know every single song. I think I just saw the movie as a kid. I don't think I ever saw a stage production of it. I had completely blanked out, which is so ridiculous to say out loud, all of this sort of domestic violence that is at the center. I mean, child abuse, domestic violence. The songs are so catchy, memorable, and hilarious. Some are just so beautiful. But you're watching the show and you're like, oh my God, this is so dark. So I wonder, as a cast of many, many young people, in a show that in some ways is lively and fun and celebratory, but at the center of it is so much darkness. How did the director and all of the people involved producing this show in a very short rehearsal period kind of help you guys negotiate and manage the really devastating center of this piece?
Well, Leah Debussy is such a magical, a wonderful director. I learned so much, and I'm still learning so much from her as we're working on this process. When we first started, the first 2 days before we even put it up on its feet, we just sat around a table and we just talked about it. We spoke about how, this show is really the main question in the show is, where's love, right? And I think everybody in the show, they might think they have it. They might think, like in Fagin's den with all these boys and Dodger, they might think that they have this some, type of love in a way, this like relationship. But I think everyone's really looking for what true love really is. And I think no one really ever finds it in the end, right? It's so dark, and it's a sad story. And I think we were talking about that and going into depth about it and going into depth about each and every moment and every character and finding what that true meaning of this person is. And I think that really helped, just doing that and then working on it, not just from the acting standpoint, but knowing, not many of these characters, or really any of these characters, have a backstory to their life, right? You just know them as they are now. So it's just, I think, kind of coming up with your own backstory in your head and using that in the character helps. And I think that's what Lear did. She helped us all find that, which was really, really special.
And did she kind of talk to you guys about the scenes where the character of Nancy gets, I mean, obviously, spoiler alert, this is a very well-known old piece of theater. So the idea that Nancy is killed at the end, if you live on the planet, you kind of know that happens. But sort of, yeah, like when she sings "As Long as He Needs Me" right after he has just beaten her,
Yeah.
as an audience member, I guess that was the point where, like, I remembered that song really well. I feel like my mom would sing it as she was driving us around to like dance lessons, and it could have been a chorus line. Like, I didn't understand the connection and the way it's placed, that is a song she's singing right after this graphic, awful interaction. It's like I've been really shook by that.
Yeah.
This sort of, the beauty of that song and the melody. I mean, you really could like sing it as like the most incredible love song,
Yes.
as a pop song, and yet it is born out of this deeply, deeply painful thing. And so, yeah, I've been thinking so much about a cast of really young people, all of you like so beautifully rendering your characters. The Artful Dodger also is like such an iconic character, and now meeting you and like seeing like you're a very youthful young person, that's a lot of weight to carry on the shoulders for that character.
It is, and I think it's a great challenge. I think having a challenge helps me.
Mm.
I think, there's always some type of nerves that I get before I go on that stage, but I think using those nerves to find who this character truly is, who the Dodger really is, or as he says, his name is really Jack Dawkins, but also known as the Artful Dodger. But I think using that to really find it in this really, as what people think, happy and, I do anything kind of fun, making fun of the rich people type of song, it's very proper and all that kind of stuff. But then you really get to the core of the show, and it's dark and abusive and sad, and there's death, and it's like, this isn't, really like the happy life that, people think it is. Like, okay, they are, they are kind of homeless in a way. They don't really get much food, but they still, you still make the best of it, even though you walk outside and there could be a dead kid on the street that you just walk over. Because back in those times, you really think about it, it was horrible times. So, yeah, I mean, I think having to kind of live in that world and portray that kind of person is tricky, but it's fun, and it's what I would love to do, and I love doing it. So doing this is really a dream, which is great.
Well, yeah, I mean, cheers to that. It really is. What's amazing is the camaraderie and the brotherhood between the kids, right? And you really kind of see that in every sort of intense situation. And these kids are destitute, as you've just described. That Fagin does become a father figure to them, and Nancy a mother figure, and there's a family. And at the center of the show, what has successfully happened in your production that you've had like 5 minutes to rehearse and do in front of thousands of people at City Center. I was one of them last night. Is create a family that's really believable. And also you are all, I mean, I can only imagine the fun of being in the company of gymnasts and singers and dancers and actors, and just the ways in which people are doing physical things with their bodies that most humans cannot do.
So talented. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
And I want to talk about you and sort of, I haven't had that many younger people on the podcast. And when I do, it is absolutely thrilling for me because everyone's sort of origin story of how they decided to do this in earnest as a profession, not just in a school play, but professionally, is so different and varied. So you're a really great looking person. I can imagine, why people would want you in their films and in commercials and things like that. Your adorableness is off the charts. And as you grow older, what I've seen in looking at pictures is you've remained like an incredibly photogenic person. Like, I feel like for some kids it goes bad and they're like, they can't do it anymore because something really weird starts happening. Right? Like that could be rough. Or you grow really tall. I mean, there are all these things that happen, especially in Les Mis. I had Noah Galvin and people like that on the show who talk about growing out of the role and the terror of being measured. It's like Weight Watchers for height.
Oh, yeah, it's crazy.
Did that happen to you?
Oh, well, I mean, I didn't leave the tour because of my height, but I did the tour for about, 6-7 months. So a very, very long time. So I was like, all right.
How old were you?
Oh gosh, I was 9 when I started and I turned 10.
Okay.
So yeah, it was an amazing experience. It was my first real, theater experience. And it was really cool to originate that role on the tour. Just kind of being there with the original cast. I always feel like, the original cast is always so special of a show, and then when someone comes in, I think we all welcome that person in, and we're like, hey, we have this family and we're going to bring you right in, and I think that's really, really special that we could do. But being on that tour was a lot of fun.
But listen, it is noon on a Thursday. You are not in school. You were talking to me. So can you explain, you were on tour for 7 months a couple of years ago. You work all the time. Tell me about when your life stopped looking like a traditional New York kid's life.
Well, I mean, I'm homeschooled. So I've been homeschooled since 4th grade. I did real school up until 3rd. And then I booked Les Mis and I went on the tour, and I was still doing kind of, I guess you could say, online school. And then, because my teacher would just send me the curriculum, I'd just do it on the tour. And then when I got off the tour, I was like, I'm so used to this, and now it looks like I'm be working a lot. So it's easier just to do homeschool. So I've been doing that for a while now. I'm in 9th grade now. And we've kept the same teacher, Ashley, who is amazing, who is great, and I meet with her twice a week. It's a little tricky during shows now, but I still do the school. Sometimes when we're at like the theater, I do school, but I think we had our last day of, I guess you could call it, I mean, I usually call it set school when I'm on set for TV shows, but I just call it theater school now. But
I love it.
we had our last day of theater school yesterday, so.
So you're in 9th grade. Were you born in New York City?
Yeah, I was.
Where?
Upper West Side.
Okay. And does your family still live on the Upper West Side?
Yeah, we do. I'm on the West Side right now. So.
And do you have siblings?
No, only child.
All right. And were your parents, or are your parents, involved in entertainment in their own careers?
Yeah, my dad was he was an agent for a while for like classical singers for like opera and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And my grandma, she was an opera singer, and she sang all around the world at the Met and all kind of stuff, which was really cool. And my grandpa flautist in the Pittsburgh Symphony. So I have a lot of music in my bones. My mom's a dancer, which is, so it's the whole music arts in my family.
Totally. It's in your DNA.
Mhm.
So you born and raised New York City. At a very young age, you started to audition professionally. So when did that, like, how did that happen? Because your dad was an agent for not actors, but for
Yeah, for musicians,
right.
and singers. So I was 7 years old when I started acting, but I didn't even think about acting at all. Really, my dad had like a dinner party, and it's kind of a long story, so I'll tell it in short. But
You don't have to. It's okay. I'm
no,
sure it's compelling and people want to know.
sure, okay. So no, so we had a dinner party, and he invited friends over, and one of his friends happened to work in an agency, and I think they didn't even put together. My parents didn't put together that anything like that where Julian may want to act or anything like, because you wouldn't think maybe my son or daughter wants to act, right? It's this kind of thing you wouldn't really think about. But his friend was like, you should bring Julian into my office. And they were like, okay, let's talk to Julian, that kind of stuff. And I was 7, so I was like, sure, let's do it. You know what I mean? I didn't really know what it was, so I was like, let's just try it out. And then a few days later, my mom picked me up from school, and we went to this agency, and I tried like a few lines and that kind of stuff. And then we heard back about, gosh, like 2 weeks later, and they sent me out for my first audition. And that's kind of how it started. I just kept auditioning, and I really started in commercials, and
Did
then
you start booking commercials right away?
um yeah, yeah, which is kind of, I won't say lucky, but I think it was kind of cool to
It's a
say.
great start.
It is a great start. Yeah, I just started kind of doing commercials, and then I went out for bigger stuff, and then bigger stuff, and then I booked some bigger stuff. And what really kind of launched it was Les Mis,
Hmm.
National Broadway tour, and then I got off, and I was doing like movie auditions and TV show auditions and like animated series auditions, and it was just kind of boosted off, and that's
So
kind of
talk about auditioning for Les Mis. Some people had to go in many, many times before they booked the role. Some
yeah.
people had a sort of very easy slide into first, and it all just kind of went from there. So what was your experience auditioning for it?
I had like, I want to say like six auditions. Yeah, I had a lot of auditions. Like you could say callbacks, really. Um,
Right.
I think the first one was audition, then I had second callback, third callback, up to 6. And I don't think I've really had a dance call because Gavroche doesn't really dance in the show, but we did some stuff for like the very, very final one where there's a chair and they were teaching me some, I wouldn't say choreography, but it was where to move while you're singing and stuff like that. So I think the audition process was very, very long, but it was, even if I didn't book it, I think it was a great experience, but I did, and that was awesome.
So you said earlier, like I don't know if you said stage fright or nerves, but before you go on in Oliver, your body goes through something, right? Before you hit the stage. So when you were auditioning, I mean, that's a long time ago now, but talk to me about did you have a coach working on the songs with you throughout the process? Because you have an incredible voice, and I've watched YouTube clips of you singing some of your own stuff. And I mean, you're really like, you're going to have to not make a choice, but there might be a moment in your life where you're like, I just want to pursue, a solo artist career, like,
I'll
or do
be, I'll
what
be
Ben Platt does, where he, goes on tour with his stuff and also is in stuff.
very, very successful. Ben Platt is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
He has a heck of a voice.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I think with Dodger and nerves and stuff, I think I usually have nerves with every character, but I've learned to deal with them over the years. So just kind of, I think, taking deep breaths for me, or just sitting there and just kind of not talking, just kind of closing my eyes and just thinking for a second, just kind of sitting there. You know what I mean? Not doing anything kind of helps. But
And do
sometimes
you listen to music? Do you have pre-show music on your AirPods that you listen to? Do you go over your lines? Do you sing your songs? Like, or are
I
you just
don't go
there
over my,
kind of meditating?
I just kind of, I just try to keep it as normal as I can possibly, be. Not think, okay, now I have to get ready, get in this whole like mode and mood for this show. I just think it's normal. I'm gonna go on stage, do my thing, get off stage, go back on stage, and we're off. That's it. So I think that's how I try to think of it. But when I'm going to like theater or something, I'll listen to music in my AirPods. But yeah, it'll be something completely different from what Oliver is. So yeah.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Do you have, do you learn lines easily? Is that something that comes easy to you?
I think it's really muscle memory for me. Just I've read so many scripts, like so many auditions and so many lines that I had to memorize.
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten better at it over all these years. I've been doing it for when I started when I was 7 and 15 now. So, oh my gosh, 8 years.
So
Dang.
a lot of young people are listening to this. Do you have any? So I'm going to ask you for some tips that you can share, things that you have found over the years that work for you. So it sounds like in terms of battling nerves, like pre-show nerves, you just get pretty quiet with yourself and kind
Yeah.
of just breathe and get centered. In terms of learning lines, are you someone who like repeats? Do you use an app on your phone? Do you have someone run them with you? Like, what have you found to be the best for you?
Well, I run them with my mom a lot. I just kind of I like to have my lines and my songs all memorized, so I don't have to think about it when I walk in the room. So I can just think about what they want me to change without having to think about, ooh, what's my next line, something like that. I can just kind of think, all right, we're gonna do it this way. This is where we're gonna move while we're doing it, and this is what we're gonna. This is. I think the one thing that's a little tricky for me is memorizing dance steps because I'm not. I've trained in dance and that kind of stuff, but I'm not like a dancer like the other boys in the show who are amazing dancers,
Yeah, yeah.
incredible. But I think
How did
just
you get this part? Were you offered it? Did you audition? How did this happen?
I did audition. I auditioned during filming Wonder Years of season 2,
Where do you film Wonder Years?
Atlanta, Georgia.
In Atlanta. And much of that show filmed during COVID, correct? Or all both seasons or just the first?
So the pilot shot way during COVID.
Okay,
So masks and shields, and it was like very, very tight.
right.
And then the first season was like the same. It was very, very. Everybody was being super, super, super cautious. We were in this tight, tight, tight bubble.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for season 2, it was a little bit looser. I would say we were still getting tested like every other day,
Right.
just to be careful, which is, I think testing's fine. I'm so used to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I think for season 2, we didn't have like the whole shield. We had masks, but not like the shield and everything like that. So it was a little bit looser, which was kind of nice because adding that whole stress of if one person gets COVID and everybody, it's just also a huge set. There's a
Yeah.
lot of people on the set, so
Yeah.
everybody, the show is done.
Did you
So
ever shut down? Did you ever have to shut down shooting while you were doing it?
no,
Okay, that's
no,
amazing. That's
it
amazing.
was just, yeah, it was. We were very, 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 very lucky. So
And season 2 premieres in June, correct?
yes, it does. June 14th.
Okay. And do you guys know yet about season 3, yes or no? Or do you not even know yet?
I don't really know yet.
Okay.
I'm crossing my fingers because I love doing this show.
Yeah.
But I met my best friends on this show, and so I think that's really special. Um,
Yes. That's
but
incredible.
yeah, to have that relationship, especially being best friends in the show and then also outside, is just amazing.
So what does that look like? Like do you guys live in apartments? Are you all in a hotel? What's the living situation? How do you hang out afterwards? Like walk us through the non-work part of it.
So for the pilot, we were all in a hotel. And then for season 1, we were in an apartment building, but you have to do it yourself. So we rented out an apartment, and I actually did it with Milan, who plays Kisa on the show. And we were in the same apartment building, which is a lot of fun because then we can hang out and just, have fun together when we're not called to set that day or something. Because, I think Brad, Corey, and Kisa, they're not in everything. So sometimes there are days where we're not even on set. So we can just hang out a lot. I think that's what got us really close. And then when we're with EJ, who plays Dean, it's like perfect. Everyone's just like this, which is wonderful having that on set.
Did you watch the original once you got the part to kind of get the sense of it?
I did. I watched the first 2 episodes before I auditioned, and then after I was like, now I have to watch this whole thing. But I when I was really watching it, I wasn't like, okay, I have to watch this for the show. I actually loved it. Like I could see why people love this show.
Yeah.
It's just about, family and just a normal kid living in this time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, our show is a little different. I wouldn't say a little different. It's a lot different.
Right.
Where, it's a Black family.
Yeah,
And
I mean, other than the name of the show and the concept, it's completely different.
yeah, it is, and it kind of shows the other side of what kids were dealing with. With we shoot. What is it? Is it in season 1? It's 1968, and so schools were just letting white kids and Black kids be together, and it's interesting to see that through the eyes of an 8th grade Black kid back then. I think it's really important for people to see now, and it shows that we still there's still some stuff that's happening now, many years later, which is crazy to think, which is a horrible thing. I think we still have a long way to go to really have equality and stuff like that. But I think it's a really great message that the show is putting out.
Well, let me ask you the same way we talked about sort of how on Oliver, there were a lot of discussions about the really hard content in the show, dealing with a show that deals with civil rights and so many, I mean, there's so much comedy in it, obviously, as well. And it's like, when I say charming, I don't mean to make it sound like, I mean, it's an important show, but they bring so much charm and joy to it, along with sort of shining a light on really difficult subject matter. Do they have people, kind of consultants or people taking you through sort of what, you just described it as sadly not so historical, so many of the things, and really present day, but were there consultants on set sort of taking you guys through, sort of in the 60s, it would be like this, you might not even move your body or do these kind of, people didn't fist bump back then, ways in which we do things now that may or may not be how they did things then? How careful are they about that with you?
Well, I think, I did some research before the show, learning about what it was like back then. And yeah, I definitely think there are some like gestures that you wouldn't do now. Like, there's this thing that we do now, we call dap somebody up.
Right. Like it just wasn't
You wouldn't
right.
do that now,
Or maybe it was, and it just had a different name.
Maybe, right? I think the closest to that is when they're like, give me some skin, you kind of snatch it off. But no, there weren't really people on set who would kind of help us that. I think we would have to find that ourselves, which I think is even better for me. Really experiencing it is hard. It's hard to experience that type of living and that type of time, which is, I think, can also relate to Oliver.
Yeah,
where it's hard
totally.
To it teaches us a lot.
Was that a job that after you did, I assume when you said you were in Atlanta, you must have done Zoom auditions for Wonder Years. Was that something where right away you were like, I think I got this? Or were you like, I have no idea how that went?
Well, I think for the auditions, like when I auditioned for Oliver, it wasn't a Zoom, it was just self-tape at first. So I sent in the self-tape, and I've done so many self-tapes, right? Because that's how a lot of things are done now. So I just sent in a self-tape of, what was it, 2 scenes? Yeah, so 2 scenes. And it was a scene when I meet Oliver, and then the scene when I run in, I'm like, we lost Oliver, right? So it was that, and then I sang some of Consider Yourself. And then they called me in. They were like, you got to come to New York right now for this dance call. I was like, whoa, okay, so we flew to New York. Thankfully, I wasn't, shooting that week. And so we flew there. I did this dance call, which was kind of tricky. I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of nervous. I'm like, I'm not the dancer. And I think there were some kids in the room who were like dancers, and there's some kids in the room who were kind of like me, who were like dancers who can also sing and act. And then there were also some kids in there who were like actor singers, right? So it was a good mix. But
Do you all know each other? Like at this point, do you kind of
yeah,
have your
basically.
crew and like get to catch up with friends?
Yeah, when I walked in that room, I was like, I know every single little kid here. And then
Right.
and there were also big kids there who were older than me, who I knew too, just because we've been all doing this since basically the
Yeah.
age. So
It's your community.
yeah, it really is. And I haven't done a Broadway show in a very, very long time. I haven't been on stage for a very long time. So to reunite with those kids has been great. Because I haven't, really went out for any Broadway things in a while, so I haven't seen them. So
Right.
it was great. It was a lot of fun. We hung out some too after, which was great.
So this movie that shot on Martha's Vineyard, what was that? And or did it shoot on Martha's Vineyard? I know it's meant to take place on Martha's Vineyard. Where did you actually film it?
We shot that in North Carolina. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
in North Carolina, but it's based in Martha's Vineyard, and it's about this group of kids who are kind of like detectives in a way, and something starts happening on the island, and they're gonna kind of figure it out. But then there's some stuff in there where it's like, oh crap, it's just not like your normal fun detective-y teenager thing. It's like real, which is really cool. It was a lot of fun to shoot.
Oh, good.
All this, special effects and stuff like that. It was so much fun.
Is that Boys of Summer? Is that the name of that movie?
Both of some.
Okay. So if someone said like, hey, Julian, we've really thought about it and we think for 10th grade, you should like go to regular high school now and have that experience. What would you think about that?
Well, I mean, I think if someone told me that, first I'd just kind of say, I've been doing homeschool for so long. I ask them why they would want me to go back to regular school. But I think it'd be so hard for me to go back there because, I've been doing this for so long. It's kind of second nature to me, especially when
Right.
COVID hit. So
Yeah.
easy because
Yeah.
I've been so used to it. So
So
going
you
back,
never wish for that.
no, definitely not. I think
Yeah.
also because with the essay and that kind of stuff, a lot of kids my age know me from that. So going back to school and probably some people being like, oh my gosh, that's the kid from yesterday or one of the years something would be hard.
Mm-hmm.
Always, not, if you're going to school every single day and being in the public eye would be tricky to deal with.
What is the thing that you do get recognized most for if you're like just walking around or in a mall?
Yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
mostly.
Yeah.
I mean, that movie, I think, is probably one of the biggest things I've done.
Mm-hmm. A lot of eyeballs on that show.
Yeah, it was an amazing experience, especially working with Jenna Ortega and Jennifer Garner and Edgar Ramirez and Everly Carneglia. It was so much fun. It really was. And I learned so many things on that set that I use today. Even in Oliver, it was
Like
just
what? Can you name one or two that pop in your head?
like the breathing technique that I use. Edgar taught me that. But there was a lot of kids on set one day, and I was like super, super overwhelmed because I was basically the middle of all this stuff with, oh my God, like 50 kids. It was a lot of kids stuck in this house. And I was really, really overwhelmed. And he was just close your eyes and take a few deep breaths. and it really helps. And so now I use that today, and I do that
That's
every time I
awesome.
go on stage.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah.
You have that for life. Anything else?
Oh wow, I think. Huh. You know what? With Jen, she taught me just to be, you know, just nice to everybody and kind to everyone. Because if you put good things out there, then good things will come back to you, hopefully. But she just taught me to just treat everybody with kindness, and I think that helps. It
I
really
love that. Because
just
that's how we all think of Jennifer Garner. So it's so great to hear that, like, that is just not a public persona. Like, she is that
well,
warm and kind and sweet.
she is just such an amazing human being, such a kind person. Like I went to LA, well, it's probably about a year and a half ago, but I went to LA and I went to her house just to have lunch with her and say hi. And it she's like, whenever she walks into the room, she just brings everybody's spirits up. She just makes everybody happy. It's just, this presence is such a wonderful presence, and it's amazing to have her around.
Can I just tell you, and I'm looking at you through a Zoom screen, I feel that way about you. Like, you just bring so much light and positive energy into the room. And you did that for everyone at City Center last night too. And that is a very big theater. And your presence and your joy in performing is so contagious. And I'm sure you felt everyone just give back so much love to you, because I mean, the Artful Dodger is just such an incredible character, and you have inhabited it with so much love and generosity and truth, and how you are with, Banjo. I mean, all of it is just really, I am so lucky that I got to be there to see it. Do you know what's next for you? Do you have something lined up?
I mean, right now, I mean, Almost Way is out. I have my show, my animated series on PBS, which is really, really exciting. But yeah, I
That
think
is written by Maria from Sesame Street, right? Like, that's her story.
yeah, it's loosely based on her life, and just kind of like growing up in the Bronx, which is
So
kind of like,
cool.
I play this character named Lucas, who's just this fun everyday kid just growing up in the city, which is a lot of fun to do. And there's a lot of, like, just kind of different people, and it shows, kids that it's like everyone can love everyone, which is great, which is a perfect message to put out there. But yeah, I have Almost Way and Voice of Summer's coming out hopefully this summer, and season 3 of Wonder Years. Crossing my fingers. We'll
We're
see.
all crossing, we're manifesting. Before I let you go, Julian, is there a little known fact that you can share about yourself?
Ooh, let's see. I wonder. What would be a little known fact? Well, I mean, I think everybody knows this, but I love music. I think I find music just so, it's like special, and I think it can speak to people in so many different ways, and I really find it like, that's another thing that kind of calms me down sometimes. Just listening to music just puts me in a certain place, which I think is such a wonderful thing. But if I can give you one more, I think I'm a gymnast, or I was a junior Olympic gymnast. So yeah, which is kind of cool. I was number one in New York State for my age group when I was 9. Uh, so that's a fun little fact I have for you guys.
So you could have been doing cartwheels across the stage last night also.
I could have, and that's where some of the dancing, that's what it helps.
Yeah,
That's what helps.
yeah. All
Um,
right. Well, I'm going to let you go because you have to do this show many more times. And it's a beast. There's a lot going on that stage.
a lot of talking, a lot of singing.
Exactly. That's it. There is a lot of talking and singing. I'm so glad that you're hydrating constantly throughout this conversation.
Definitely.
Julian, thank you for being on the podcast today. I wish you all the best. Have fun.
Thank you so much.
You're
Bye.
welcome. Bye.
Bye.